Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be working on the sagging doors. If you've noticed before, every time I have to open and close the doors, they're not aligned right, and that has to do with the pin in the hinge. So today we're going to take off the doors, we're going to fix those. I've got some parts here to fix that. Should be a pretty straightforward job and make a world of a difference. I'm tired of picking up these doors. The other thing is just a quick update on this project is we're going to slow down just a little bit. I'm having to save up for the batteries, and those are the most expensive part. So we'll be doing projects that are more DIY, refreshing pieces, things like that in the meantime. So the project's not going to die, don't worry, it's going to still be around. It's just going to take a little time to save up to get the batteries so we can continue with the major parts of like how to run our wires and where to put our fuse panel and things like that in here. And I don't really want to do any of that until I have the batteries in place where I want them to be. That way I don't waste any of the parts I have under the bench here ready to go for it. So anyway, let's get started here. Alright, to start, I made sure to put my jack stand underneath here with some protection. You can see there's a lot of wiggle in the door. There's a lot more when I don't have the jack help holding it up. But the hinge is pretty loose. Then there's on this side, there's going to be 8 screws per hinge. And I'll get y'all a closer look here in a second. And we're going to take those off, and we're going to get the whole door off. That way we don't have to fight dealing with being inside of the crevice. So let me show you those hinges, and then we'll get to work. Alright, so here are the hinges. It's identical on the door as it is on the car side. You can see where I left the screws in when we did the paint video. If you haven't seen the paint video, it'll be right here, right there. So we're going to take these out. I'm just going to take out the 8 that are on the car and to remove the door, and then we'll work on the door separate. Alright, so just a quick note before we start. I'm going to be using one of these plug-in drills. I'm using the extra wide tip on here. That's what I found to be the easiest the first time I had to do it when I was working on the car to take off the panels to paint it. You can use an impact if you want. I just like this one because it just to bump and go and it comes right out. So I'm going to zoom through this real quick because all you're going to really see is my back. And then I'm going to set it here on some cardboard I have over here, and I'll show you the end result. So here we go. Alright, so we're going to be doing the same thing on the door side. Now it's much easier to deal with. Using the same drill. It should come right out. Got to just kind of bump it there. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to make sure we keep all the washers with it on there. So let's just knock this out. Okay, so one thing to notice about the hinge, you see it didn't get painted, so that's kind of my fault when we did the paint job, but the side that has a flange on it, on the top and bottom here, you can kind of see the difference when you look at it from the side. The flange side is the side that goes on the door. And then on the top, we've got this door catch here. So the flange on the door side, and this will be in here, hooked up to the other end of the door catch there. Kind of hard to see with my finger in the way, but it's in there. Kind of falls back a little bit, so when you screw that in, it should hold it. So good thing now is we can clean up the backs of these a little bit, clean up this surface a little bit, and do a little bit of the rust treatment spray. You know, you probably should have done this when we painted it, get all this off, and completely painted it, but we didn't, so that's alright. We live and learn. So let's move to the bench. Alright, so we've got the hinges on the bench. I want to apologize for the sun. It's like right in my face, so I'm going to do my best to try not to get this all washed out. But we see we've got a got a pin in here, goes all the way through. But you can see why our doors are so sloppy. Always having to pick them up and put them in there. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a punch and drive it through on those. And then we've got these kind of sleeves, if the camera will pick it up. Kind of got a shoulder on them on top. I'll put a link in the description for these, so if you have a similar issue, these should work for you. But let's drive out these pins really quick, and then we'll start putting them in place. Alright, so on the inside of our female side, I guess is what you would call this, is you can see that there's kind of a bigger gap versus the other side where there's no real recess, but on here there is. So what that means is we've got our little sleeves here with the shoulder on top, and we're going to be putting them in that housing there like that, and we're going to press them in. Now if you have a press, this will make it a lot easier, but I don't have a press, so I mean, you can already see it's trying to get in there. It's not necessarily straight. But we're going to do our best to keep that straight, kind of tap it in there. We're just going to use it on the edge of the bench here to see if we can just lightly tap it in. I'll be using a pretty light hammer to work my way around. So we'll just tap all these in real quick. Alright, and just like that, it's in there. Alright, so our pins seem to be in pretty good shape. I don't see any irregular wear, any soft spots, any skinny spots. They're pretty nice and round. And you'll notice that one side has little grooves in it. If I can bring it to you, it'll pick up there. See the little grooves in the end there? And the other side doesn't. So the groove side is what goes on the bottom, and that helps keep it in place. So what I want to do is, when I put these back together, I want to tap smooth side first. But before we get that far into it, I'm going to clean up these pins. There's all sorts of grime and little etches in them. So if we smooth these out, put a little bit of WD-40 on them or whatever before we slot them in, it should make it a lot easier. It is going to be a tough, tight fit. Just as an example here, it is like you can't get any tighter than that, and we have to be pretty diligent on getting that in there. So let's get these cleaned up, and then we can get on the reassembly. All I'm using on to clean these, the rods, is just a green Scotch-Brite. Like I said, I apologize for the sign, it's just coming through the window here. But just a green Scotch-Brite and some water. I'm not really getting too crazy with it. I just want to clean off any burrs, any rough spots, anything that's going to fight us going into the hinge. As we just saw, it's quite a tight fit, so I want to make sure that we get it all off nicely. Now you could use like a piece of 80 grit sandpaper or 120. That would really get it nice and smooth, but we can already see it's starting to, the sun will stop hurting us here, really starting to clean up. So let's just zoom through this and we're going to clean these up, that way we can keep going. Alright, so now that we've got our sleeves in here, you might want to make sure that you have to make sure that they're all the way seated, because this fit is super tight. So it should be able to slide just in there with maybe just a little bit of work like this. If it takes too much effort, I've already had to do it once on this one, make sure you're on a metal surface and not like a wood workbench, and really get them in there seated. So this one I'm going to give a couple more taps to over here on my vise. And that should make it seat properly. So I'm going to come in here and see how tight that fit is compared to where we were at to begin with how wobbly that was. Now we can see how nice and tight this is. I'm going to give it a little tap. Try and see if we can get it to line up here. But you can see it's so tight that it holds itself up. There's nothing holding this. It takes some effort there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to coat this in a little bit of PP Blaster, some WD-40, liquid wrench, whatever you use, just to help us out. And we want to make sure that our threads, the threaded side, is down. So we're going to come in here, and you'll know which one is the bottom because it'll have the thread pattern on the inside of the hole. Just want to get that lightly started. You can see where we hit the tabs. So we're going to get these lined up in here. We're going to get it all the way in. It's going to take some finagling probably, and then we'll move on to the next one, and then we'll start to reinstall the door. Alright, so we're about to put the door back on. It's going to be a reverse of what we did a little while ago. I'm just going to zoom through it. It's going to be a little bit of a balancing act, but once we get a couple of the screws started, then it shouldn't be much of a problem. I adjusted the padding on our jack stand here. Makes it a little more plush too, so you can barely see it there in the corner right there. Anyway, so let's get started. So I've come to the realization that the battery died while doing that, but after I've got the door on. But luckily we got it earlier, so you kind of know how it comes off, just how it goes on. If you have a friend, I highly recommend having somebody help you hold the rear end of the door here while you align it. The hinges are going to be stiff. They just haven't been broken in. Once you open and close it several times, it'll slowly start to work its way loose. You can even pre-do that on the bench with the vise, just work it back and forth, put some WD-40, PB Blaster, whatever you use, in there, back and forth. So anyway, we've got the door in. It's going to be a lot more stiff, but I think we've got it right. All the screws are in there. So let's see if we can close it. I'm going to go nice and slow on the first time just to make sure everything lines up, and then we'll see if we can get it all set. So you can see how much, there's no play in this door unless you shake the whole car. So it looks like everything lines up. I don't have any drag on the door. Let's go for it. Man, look at that. Perfectly flat. A little bit there. Maybe needs to go a little harder. Comes right out. I don't see any rub, so that's good. Don't see anything on here. That's old. Don't mind that. That's old. And there it is. No more wobbly door. Awesome. So, just like that, this is the driver's side door. It's going to be the same thing on the passenger side. I just wanted to get one door completely done for you guys. That way you can see how it's done. It's not very hard. You just got to work it. Make sure you lubricate everything well. It will be stiff. Just expect that. It's not going to be all floppy like it was before with all that play. Now the door is set. That's one less thing we have to worry about. And then we'll move on to the next one and see what else we can come up with while we save it for those batteries. So next time, guys, I appreciate it. Thanks for watching the video. Make sure you comment, like, subscribe, hit the little bell. That way you know when new videos come out. Until then, I appreciate it, and we'll see you.